Ok, alors on va commencer. C'est un Jedi un peu spécial ce soir, puisque ce sera en anglais. Le premier I de IRIIG, comme vous le savez, c'est international. Donc quand Samira... I will switch to English soon. Quand Samira m'a contacté pour nous proposer d'organiser cet événement, on a trouvé que c'était une très bonne occasion pour nous tous d'avoir un point de vue différent et de faire quelque chose d'un peu différent ce soir. C'était une très bonne occasion de parler de Social Impact Innovation avec un point de vue anglo-saxon, puisque Hackaday est une communauté d'abord américaine et que Supplyframe, dont est issue Majenta, est basée à Pasadena en Californie. C'est une source d'inspiration et vous le verrez bientôt, c'est aussi une possibilité de financer certains de vos projets entrepreneuriaux avec le Hackaday Prize 22, dont on va vous parler très bientôt. So welcome to all of you, Majenta, Samira, Alex, Giovanni, Jason, Isabelle, Jean-Noël. We are very glad to welcome you at IRIIG, the French School of Innovation Management, and on our campus at H7. As an introduction, one of our students, Mathieu, will share with you his experience as both entrepreneur and student.
Thank you. So, hello everyone. I will take my note because my English is not as perfect as yours. So, I'm very glad to be here to introduce tonight. And I wanted to share with you my experience of being an entrepreneur and a student too. I created my company, Payapat, who sells some pasta straw for coffee, restaurant, and other. When I was a student, now I'm a student in IRIIG, and now we wanted with my associate to have a real impact, and that's why I'm still a student. I want to learn how to innovate, still innovate in my company, in other company, with some environmental impact for me and some social impact maybe in the future. And that's why I'm here in IRIIG tonight. And these values that I had before, I wanted to increase them in IRIIG, and that's why I'm here, and I'm very glad to see you tonight. Thank you very much.
Hello. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. My name is Majenta Strongheart. I'm head of design and partnerships at Supplyframe's DesignLab. And I'm going to give you a little information first about why we're here and why Giovanni and I are very lucky to be able to come to your institution and talk to you more about these projects that we've been working on, and hopefully be able to bring you all into our community of open source hardware innovators and entrepreneurs and makers and designers and engineers and scientists and creators, because we really believe that through collaboration and open source design, we're able to make an impact in the world around us. And this year, the Hackaday Prize is all about sustainability and climate crisis resiliency, which are topics that all of our panelists feel very passionate about. And we're excited to share that with you all today, and ways we think maybe you can get involved if it's of interest to you. So the Hackaday Prize, actually I'll rewind a little bit. So our parent company is Supplyframe. They make software as a service tools for the electronics industry, and we were actually recently acquired by Siemens, which might be a company you're more familiar with, a pretty big company. And we are lucky to work at, me and my colleague Giovanni, who's our product development engineer, are lucky to work at DesignLab right outside of Los Angeles, California. It's a design and fabrication facility that is partly for the community. We lead a lot of workshops and programs there to help teach local members how to design for electronics, design for manufacture, hack hardware devices, and beyond. And we also help support designers and engineers in residence who are developing socially impactful open source hardware projects. And that's actually how we met Samira and Jason, who are on this panel today. We'll talk a little bit about that, and we're really grateful to finally meet them in person after years of working together remotely. and also to have them bring in more of their collaborators into the fold. Jean-Noël and Isabel, thank you so much for joining us. And so back to the main initiative that brings us here is Hackaday Prize, which you'll see the postcards in front of you and also our website here on the display. But the Hackaday Prize is an annual initiative that this is the 9th year now that we've run it. It runs for almost the entire year from March to November. And we give away over $150,000 to open source hardware projects and products that people all around the world upload onto hackaday.io, which is a project posting site and sharing site. Maybe if you're familiar with GitHub, it's almost like that. You can post your design files, your code, and everything it requires to make your product or project or your solution and share it with the community and continue to grow and get feedback and product development support and mentorship and some money to fund your projects. So we're hoping that after hearing a little bit from us today, you may be inspired to look more into this initiative and see ways that you can get some support for what you're working on. And we have prizes that range from $500 US to $50,000, which is the grand prize. And last year, actually, the grand prize winner was a graduate student from MIT. And before that, we've had students, we've had makers, we've had designers of all different kinds win and find success through their open source projects, getting investment, and even going on to being acquired by other companies or continuing to manufacture and share their products through open source business models. And so we're going to talk more about that, but you can check out more information on the website. There's 5 challenges, so all different opportunities of themes and categories that might fit with your work. And actually the last category, the Save the World wildcard, is really open-ended. So if you feel like maybe something you're working on doesn't fit with the first 4 challenges, there's an opportunity that's really loose, really open, and you can get creative about how your work may be framed to fit the challenge and be able to enter and hopefully get some support. So I've spoken a lot. I'm going to just give a brief introduction to each of our speakers before we get into our discussion today. So as I mentioned, we have Jean-Noël on our right. He is a director of programming at LDLC School in charge of digital technology and usage department. He graduated from the School of Truancy as in a self-taught electrician. And in the late 80s, he worked as an engineering assistant in the textile industry, during which he filed his first patent. He's a serial inventor and entrepreneur, and for the past 8 years, he's been very involved in the maker movement and education, delivering courses, workshops, and participating in hackathons. And it was great to catch up and find out that we know many of the same makers in just a couple conversations the last couple days, so thank you for joining us. Giovanni is our product development engineer. We've been working together over the last 5 years, and he's been involved in a number of DesignLab initiatives even before starting to work there. His background is in industrial design, and he helps us produce products and design for manufacture at DesignLab. He supports our designers and engineers, and we're actually very excited to be working on a number of projects for Hackaday Prize with collaborators all around the world to give examples and inspiration for others. And all of those projects and products have instructions and full documentation on Hackaday.io that you can check out and maybe build off of, because that's part of the magic of open source. You can continue to build something off of somebody else's work and grow the reach and the impact of the work that we've done. So we're happy to share those projects, and we'll actually be leading a workshop with Samira in Barcelona around an air quality sensor for urban rivers, which maybe he'll talk about a little more later, depending on if it's relevant to our discussion. Samira Chukpali on my left is a longtime collaborator now of the lab. She has founded and she's director of Need Lab, based in Barcelona. She's also selected as an Obama leader by the Obama Foundation. She's designed and implemented human and environment-centered solutions in partnership with UN Habitat and other city governments on 4 continents. And as a maker and social entrepreneur herself, she enjoys teaching workshops and making sustainable solutions reachable to us all. And I can tell you firsthand that she's involved with more things than I can keep track of and does really amazing work and is really, really inspiring as far as how much she contributes to her community and continues to keep the cycle of passing on knowledge and expertise. Jason Knight is founder of RPSD, which he'll show off maybe later. He's a product designer and maker who's developed a way to make skateboard decks out of 100% recycled plastic. And he has released it as open source. In his fight against plastic waste, he's made a downloadable kit containing all the information. He has a background in industrial design, and he's an active member of the maker community and enjoys teaching and sharing skills as well. And last but not least, we have Isabel. She is founder of a fab lab called Lab 01, an innovation space in, I'm going to practice this with Ambero and Bouget. She'll tell you. There you go. I was close right now.
It was close. It was close.
And she's an artist and maker. She wanted to join a company whose focus was on sustainability with a heavy emphasis on innovative custom projects, so she created it herself. She's active in the maker community since 2014, bringing people, technology, and creativity together through frugal innovation. So that's our incredible panel here today, and we really want to jump into the discussion, so I'll stop talking and start with our first question. So we know that hacking can feel like a controversial word sometimes, and something that, you know, we've had as feedback around Hackaday. For those who are unfamiliar, feels like, what is Hackaday? What is, you know, hacking sounds maybe sometimes suspicious or treacherous, but we also think about life hacks. What are the hacks that we do every day to make our lives easier, to make the table more level? You put a stone or a piece of paper under it, right? So I wanted to start and ask everyone sort of, why do you feel you are a hacker, in what ways, or what do you think when hacking comes to mind? And yeah, we have another microphone, or I can pass it around. I might put Jean-Noel on the spot, because we were talking about this the other day,
Yes.
so I'll let him begin.
Thank you for your question. I'm not really surprised of this question. So
Yes, you've been prepared.
I have a small note, but I think there is not only one definition of what is hacking. So I've got the one from one guy who is very well known in this area is Mitch Altman. He says it's see resources and use resources to improve your projects and share it with the others. And but I think we all agree with that. It's a mindset. Before all, it's a way of thinking, a way of living. Another definition, I'll be quick, is from our friends at Makers Asylum in India. They say make, break, and create. You see the picture. And my own definition is be curious about technology, try to understand it and use it your own way, not necessarily what it was designed for. This is important. And take shortcuts to go directly and quickly to your goals. And sometimes it can lead to innovation. That's it for me.
I agree, and I love the definition of taking shortcuts. And I would add, for me, it is a bit of challenging the status quo, you know, not settling for what you see. And if you see something that can be improved, why not improve it? In a good way, lose respect for what's there. You know, you can change and improve things if you feel like there's a way for that to be done.
Cool. Me? Thank you, Marianne and Majenta, for the introduction and for everyone being here. I think for me, I agree with what Jean-Noel and Giovanni said. In my early adult life, I realized I was dyslexic. So every educational system, schooling, everything was made for a different community. So I felt always I didn't fit in. And then I learned the way I was learning, I was already hacking the system for it to be good for me to just exist and learn. So without knowing from my childhood, I was kind of hacking.
A natural hack.
To learn. So I think for me, hacking is just making it accessible to everyone. For example, our incredible camera crew, thank you, hacked this floor so that we all don't trip and fall. And that's simple to much larger as fixing social justice issues. For me, all of that spectrum is hacking the system, I guess.
Same as everyone else. Same as I agree with everyone else about there's many definitions for hacking. For me, it's about resourcefulness. So like if you have something that works like 90% perfectly and you quickly need to like make a solution to get it work 100% good, then that's hacking for me. Like if you use the resources you have to do something quicker or to do something easier without going completely back to the beginning and starting again. There's one of the many definitions, but this is the strongest one for me. Yeah.
Okay, so well, hello also everybody. I guess I will take, I want to say that hacking is not necessarily technological. And for example, like you said, I think you said I co-founded the Labo one. Really, I feel like I hacked it. There was a political decision to make a co-working in a small town near Lyon because it's not far, it's 30 minutes away. So this is cool, that can be done, that makes sense. So there's a political decision to do it. And then there was people wanting a Fab Lab. And so we hacked this. We said, hey, we can take what you have, and then we had a little bit of something. We create something new with it, and then they agreed, and then we're building up on that project since then from one little. It's really, instead of going from the top and having a main idea and doing all the steps to get there, is see which step you can take each time and make one step forward to invent something new.
I think those were all awesome definitions, so thank you. And we'll get right into some of the current projects that you all are working on to help give everyone context of what exactly is tangible that you've been developing. So I'll start with Samira. If you could talk about one social innovation project that you're currently involved in, and give us just a little bit more detail, and maybe help define, what does social impact innovation mean?
Whew, that's big.
It's a big, yeah.
Well, I'm an architect, so and a maker and a hacker. So one of the projects I'm working now is called House for All. We open sourced how a family can build their own house, and that's currently being transformed and changed by communities. The first version of the house we built had producing energy by itself and growing food on the walls, and also the materials were very insulative, very adaptable, and it was above the ground, so there was no flood affecting the house and people didn't have to move. And the second version that's getting built is now accessible with a wheelchair. And that's a hack on our first house, which was a social purpose. So the whole idea of community with the materials building it, and also evolving and changing for the needs of all of us, is kind of hacking the evolution of that. And that's one of the social projects I'm working on. And yeah, there are more, but we can have a coffee and discuss.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I wonder if, do you think it's best to have questions throughout, or we'll save for the end? If anybody has any questions throughout what we're talking about, feel free to raise your hand, and we'd love to have a conversation about it in the moment. Keep it fresh. Yeah.
That's a great question. I don't know if everybody could hear. She asked if there's any other sectors where we could have social innovation.
Outside of architecture.
Yeah. Absolutely. Jason's a living example next to me. He works with us at DesignLab. And with Jean-Noël, we made a social project, which was a face mask disinfection device. We didn't have masks to be sterilized. As an architect, and as a maker, we combined all our resources to make a little house, but for face masks to be recycled. Social innovation. It was a need at that time. Jason's recycling plastic into skateboards. Social innovation. It's not just the product, but it's the community that the innovation is creating. It's also mental health and well-being. it's this feeling of belonging. The social innovation is not the product itself, but the way you bring everyone together, for me. If someone wants to add.
And I think also something that Jason was discussing earlier was around designing for need instead of maybe wants. Yeah. So thinking about what's really needed in a community or a society or for an individual, even when we've had past challenges for the Hackaday Prize that are around design for accessibility, design, mouse controllers for people who don't have good hand mobility or maybe control over, the parts of our body most people do. So one of the past winners was a mouth control interface, entirely open source, that anyone could add to different, maybe remote for their TV or for their computer. So there's really, sort of endless opportunities for social impact and innovation design, and I think it does come down to identifying a need that's not being met by oftentimes the systems that we wish were meeting it, right? Maybe. But yeah, I don't know if anyone else had anything to add.
Yeah, just one little example. I remember from when I first met with the Maker Movement, it was an open source mosquito trap challenge, and that's actually a pretty big deal, because how do you make it with very low tech, and because mosquitoes can be a really big social issues, and so yeah, finding a solution that doesn't need electricity and that you can build cheaply.
So we've mentioned in a few of our discussions so far, answers, I think, the importance of collaboration, and specifically collaboration between different disciplines, which is something I know that at DesignLab has been incredibly valuable and advantageous to pushing our projects forward. Maybe we'll start with you, Isabel. Maybe you could discuss the value of collaboration in accomplishing your social innovation goals.
Okay. Well, it's really all built around that, around the collaboration. The Fab Lab and the TLU in general will not exist if it wasn't for all the people and the variety of stakeholders involved in it. We have people that are starting businesses, but we have also people that have started their business a long time ago. Some people that just work for a total different income as makers to build some things. And we have students. We have like a guy that came to the lab since he was 13, and I was meeting with all kind of people. And so this is all those variety of people. They make it that anytime somebody comes with a question, or even without question, we'll find new answers. And that's the magic that happens in hackathon when you spend 3 days with people and a team of people and you build something. But it also can happen in 10 minutes because you meet the right person, and it's always magical.
Did anyone else want to answer?
So your question was about the benefits of collaboration between different disciplines, or okay. So the project I have in mind is in the scope of the guy is a young guy who had an accident and is hemiplegic. Hemiplegic, it works in English, I think. He can hemiplegic, so he can move only half of his body, but he still wanted to play video games as his other friends. And we made a hackathon with a non-profit association whose name is Autonabi, and we set it up with the LDLC school students plus your neighbors here at Strat Design School. And so it was a multidisciplinarity hackathon, because there were some designers, some software developers, myself for the hardware hacking, and we had disabled people, the real users, to attest that this is what they want, this is what they need, and it can work for them. It's an example. Yes.
Well, one thing that I wanted to add is that every time that I talk to students, I tell them, look, it is not, you don't have to know everything. You just have to know 3 things. You have to know what you know, and what you know you don't, well, actually those two are the most important, and what you know that you don't know, you know, that, you know, so that can get you so far. I am an industrial designer, so I am not an engineer, but I took some courses on mechanical engineering, on electronic design, and I'm not able to design a PCB, but I can talk to electronic engineers. And that's just because I took a quick course. And the same happens with mechanical engineering. I know how far a talented mechanical engineer can go with their finite element analysis, right? So as long as you know what you want to do, or at least as long as you know the tools that you need for that, you can collaborate with other people very effectively. You know, so don't feel like you have to be experts. You just need to know where you want to get to and a few of the tools and ways to communicate to people. Okay?
I'm going to just do one little quick shameless plug again for Hackaday I.O. is actually a great platform to find some of these collaborators. There's a ton of people who are very passionate about what they know and very passionate about being curious and supporting other projects and, you know, adding their skills to someone else's project if they believe in it. And so it's how some of us, you know, met and worked together, and it can be potentially a place you can find other people with other skills or disciplines that you either want to learn from or collaborate and use for your projects.
I absolutely agree with her, and we found a lot of team members through their website. Just adding to what Giovanni and Majenta said, a lot of you might feel really afraid that I really want to help my sister. She has this X pain point, or I have this problem, I want to change that, but I don't know how to fabricate it. I don't know how to code it. I don't know how to make a website. I don't know all of these things. But you don't have to know. I did not know any of that when we started out. My main skill was to identify a problem and being able to design an architectural or design-based solution, knowing what materials are good, being able to talk to people. And when I spoke to people, I found Jason, I found Jean-Noel, I found my husband, who basically, for free, supports us to build websites, to build software, to build apps. And then all of those incredible collaborators and the government and people who fund us helped us do what we can. And imagine each of the idea that all of you have with all the other people outside who don't have ideas or are looking for ideas, the potential of that. So collaboration and entering something like this competition can only expose you to those people more and more. So you don't have to feel alone, is the collaboration community. Yeah.
I have something to add as well, if it's okay. It's something we were discussing earlier today, and basically we really feel like, considering the urgency of certain problems that we face today, for environmental problems and other problems, if you develop alone, it's a very slow and linear process. But if you develop openly, which is the idea behind open source, then as a society we develop exponentially, so everyone can work and collaborate on the problems, and it allows us as a whole species to develop much faster than if everyone works on their own and keeps everything secret to themselves. So this is at this point in history, it's very important if we want to.
Feels crucial.
Yeah, exactly,
in a lot of these spaces.
Exactly, like this to solve the problems fast enough that they don't cause significant societal changes. We need to work in this way. There's really no other option.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Did anyone have any questions at this point? Okay, I'll keep moving. So something that often comes up, I think, with especially at least when I was a student and in students we work with in different settings, is sort of the fear around open source or sharing your work openly online. Mm-hmm. There's an idea of, you know, proprietary knowledge and needing to hide things until it's fully ready to release, and then you want it to be, protected from people maybe stealing your work or something like this. And we had I've had wonderful conversations with everyone here actually around this idea of open source and a lot of the advantages and how you don't really lose out business opportunities or the advantages you get of being the designer. So I would love to hear from some of our panelists why you think it can be advantageous to open source your work and how it can push your business forward even.
I can begin because
start,
I have the microphone. So
you have
why not?
and you have your business right there.
Yeah, true. So I think one of the biggest things, like people, so there is obviously this fear that a lot of people have. If it was very counterintuitive that if you come up with a new invention to just spread it as far as you can on the internet and get as many people as you can to see it. Like so much in our society teaches us to do the opposite and like compete with each other. But the reality is, if you publish stuff, what I'm experiencing is it doesn't put you out of work. You still have other work you can do on the project, and you're still able to make an income and survive, which I think is a thing that a lot of people are afraid of. Like, if I share my ideas, I'm going to be out of work. There's going to be nothing to do. But it's not true. It allows you to focus on other things and do other things for the project, like develop the next version, like do more R&D, do publicity, like what we're doing now. And one of the biggest values is you get feedback from a lot of people. Like usually you have to organize this yourself. So like do specific user testing, like think about the questions, think about who you invite and everything. And for individuals or small groups to coordinate this, it's a huge task. It's like it's too much for people to be able to do. So if you publish it for free, all of a sudden lots of people develop and work on your idea, and it's protected under Creative Commons. So like you can share your work on the condition that if people replicate it, they have to share it back. So you get this feedback cycle, which just happens autonomously. Like, so I've just published a documentary about how to build the machine to produce these boards. So I will make another version in a few years, but right now I will just do nothing. Like I'm testing it, and I will see. I will get some feedback myself by testing it, but also I will wait and see what other people in the community do. So other people will replicate this, make their own changes. So we get people with different specialities and different niches to me, applying their personal skills to it to develop it in ways that I can't even think of. Mm-hmm. Goes back to what Giovanni's saying, know what you don't know that you don't know a lot. So then in 6 months or 1 year's time, I can look at what other people have done with this idea and then cherry pick what I think is the good thing to add and then develop the next version.
You go from having a team of 1 or 3 people to having the world, prototyping and distributing your project and testing it in real time.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I can give you my own testimonial of it's a real story. Let's say 12 years ago, I once again made an invention with a patent and a possibility of patent. But I was alone with my small company, and I had the choice to stay alone with my small company into my garage and keep it secret until the patent can be delivered, and to pay a lot of money for that. And I did this mistake, let's say. So it cost me a lot, and I was alone, and it didn't progress. And in front of me, the possible concurrents or customers were LG or Samsung or very big companies. And even if I had the patent, in fact, it was a question of money to work around this invention. For them, it was not an issue. So, but one day I discovered the makers movement, the Arduino electronics, and the fact that you can open source. And I had this patent delivered, but it was possible to open source it because it was already delivered. And at the heart, at the roots of a patent, the idea is to share, to increase the knowledge of everyone. But you have to wait and you have to pay for that. So it's a complex situation, but it's possible to have both. So I didn't become rich, as you can see. It was my goal, but it didn't work with this patent. But I became rich, not in money, but with this open source and the worldwide community of makers and hackers And now I'm rich of all these connections, and it's more than money. That's my conclusion about that.
Aren't you afraid that sometimes people, unfortunately, have bad intentions and they can see your idea, an idea very precious to your heart, and then work it in a very different way and better way than you do, and then you will lose the idea? Aren't you afraid of that?
I think if people have bad intentions, whether you patent it or not, they will figure it
They're
out.
gonna find a way to do it.
Like they will reverse engineer it. Like if you publish something patented, they will reverse engineer it and figure out a way around it. So it's like whether it's patented or not, I don't think it makes a difference. Like you can personally spend, like Jean-Francois says, like you can spend a lot of time to like patent it yourself and get a lawyer. But if you sell something, put it out in the world, people are going to figure it out for sure. And then work around it, like work around the patents that you put in place. Like you look at Apple and Samsung and they're just having this like back and forth, and they just work around it. So it will happen anyway.
Either way, it will.
Either way, but like it's, yeah, either way.
And talking about you and your project, if you have not contributed to the open source community, it's perfectly fine. What I would recommend is that you take a look at what is happening at the open source community. If you're thinking of something, I don't know, whichever project you are working on, you should check, and here comes the shameless plug, hackaday.io or another of the repositories. There's probably someone who has designed something that is a little bit similar, or part of the technology that you're planning to use. Maybe you stumbled upon a private company that sells that, and you are ready to pay a ton of money for that 1-year license. But if you checked with the open source community, it's very likely that you will find an Arduino code or a mechanism that you didn't even think of. So before thinking of contributing, if you're unfamiliar with that, I would really recommend you to stop. First of all, 2 steps. Think of your project, and then do a quick search and see if people are working on something like that. And as all the panelists have mentioned, everyone is more than eager to share that so that you can build on top of that.
And I had a couple other points to add as well. As we've mentioned, it can be very expensive and tedious. Like while you could be working on other things when you're a small team, you can bury years. I mean, years that are really important if you're a startup. 5 years that you could have been advancing your technology, you're burying in lawyers, maybe lawsuits, depending on if somebody else is fighting for this patent, this protection, you know. And a lot of the systems, I can mostly speak for experiences I've heard in the US, but a lot of the laws and systems and practices around these copyright protection or patents are so outdated and slow that also it's just working against you. So if you're a young startup and your advantage is that you came up with this at the moment and it's really relevant today, you're gonna lose all that. Not to say that's dramatic, but you know, you may lose this advantage in time you have because others are also likely working on this somewhere else and racing to a patent versus racing to get it into the hands of people so you can keep making it better and build your brand and your community. You know, you'll be the judge of what's more worth it. But also something I like to say is if you think of, you know, your favorite coffee shop or your favorite backpack or your favorite shoes, like there's a million people making these things and maybe very similarly, but you still choose that place or that brand or whatnot. So think of all the other things that go into that solution or development that are because of you or because of the brand you build or the company you build. And that's really what's gonna set it apart oftentimes. Obviously there's very specific technology advances that maybe are not, you know, there's not as many out there that you're competing with, but I think that's also important to remember. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I just react to the question about what happens if somebody takes your work and then make it something totally different. I experienced with an open source art project, and then so there was it was art and technology with blockchain, and then this artist put it in open source, and then I took it as an artist. And it was very interesting to just see how the project takes different shapes, and it's also an experiment, and it also got like you said before, it got out there like way quicker, and it became two things instead of just one thing. So.
Free advertising sometimes.
Yeah.
Somebody else is pushing their project, and they might say what inspired them or it came from, and then it links back to you.
Like both of you just said, it happened to our small company or non-profit as well. I was 24 in Europe. I'm not from here, and I don't have lawyers. We're a small group trying to build and do the right thing for our community in the least damaging way. And a huge magazine takes a product, puts it on their cover page, and they don't credit us. And I was like, well, I have two options. I could either call the lawyers, fight this whole big battle. Do I really want to do that? I'm 24, I don't have any power in bargain. Or I could just tag them and make it part of my campaign. So it took, I'm not telling it's very easy to digest that and get there. It took us weeks of planning and then strategizing and being like, how can we turn it around? The open source, there's clearly rules that if you monetize it, you have to pay us. But if someone breaks it, do you waste time or do you monetize on that opportunity? Do you think of that as your opportunity to say, hey, look, someone liked our idea so much, they went out and built an option 2, or they put it there and build off of that. So I'm happy today that we did the plan B. And I think that helps us get noticed in publicity, like you said. Yeah.
I just wanted to add one quick thing to the question, and this is very relevant, I believe. Making your product part of the open source community or network doesn't mean that you have to give away everything. You know, it can be just aspects of it, and the rest you can keep it to yourself. The certain laws, and we're not familiar with the French law, but it is possible to outsource parts of it or, leave it open for the community, but the rest have it well protected. So it's not like you have to give all or nothing.
Any other questions on that topic before I ask another question? Yeah, one more comment.
So it's not about your question, sorry, but I think about the open sourcing, in my opinion, it's also a question of more and more importance of confidence in what I'm buying as a technology. Let's say I want to have an electric car with a lot of computing inside, a lot of code, and I would like to...
At the beginning? Does anyone know? I'm pretty sure there was a point where they said, if someone can build this better, go ahead and show us.
Yes, I don't know if it was as much as open source, but they allowed other car
manufacturers to see their design. Oh, okay.
Charging system.
So that part maybe was
I think so, yes.
available. Okay, interesting. So speaking of reverse engineering, we've mentioned it a few different ways. Do we think, I'd love to just hear some of your perspectives on there's a lot of ways to approach sustainability and the challenges we're facing with the environment, and a lot of the problems that we face have to do with outdated systems and technologies that people didn't think about the effects they were going to have in 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, and now we're all facing the consequences. So what are your perspectives on, young innovators and people developing hardware and developing technology for social impact? How much maybe should be dedicated to looking at the systems that exist and redesigning them, re-engineering them, hacking them, breaking them, making them better? And how much maybe should be going towards, and maybe there's not an answer specifically percentages, or what do you think is the value of looking back versus looking forward and thinking, what's a whole new solution, a whole new, you almost can't imagine what the future would be, but it could be this, right? Almost a speculative product or project or research.
Okay, so I get asked this a lot about plastic recycling specifically, like it's my niche, so a lot of people come and say it's bad to recycle because it sends out the message that you can use plastic just because it can be recycled. But my response to this is it's two separate problems that need equal amounts of attention for both. So if we stop producing plastic right now, like this second, we still have this huge problem from the past to clear up. So it's about acknowledging that there are two problems and two things, and they both need equal attention. It doesn't just because we need to simultaneously find solutions to replace plastic, but then also clean up the plastic that we've already produced. And I think this same metaphor applies to many different practices.
And so, yeah, I guess it wasn't stupid. It was going to be non-technical. Once again, what I want to say is that one very important thing from the past to rethink totally, I think, is our relationship with nature. How we are always using it as a resource. Like we're thinking this is just there's us doing all that things, and we're humans, so we have special rights, and then we have everything else that's just material. And so I think we have to look, when you say like look at all things, like really have to totally change and hack that and say how do we have a new relationship with natural elements as partners and not as materials, and with water, with the air, with really everything. It has to be rethink. That's an old thing that needs to be redone, and then from this perspective, then start building technological solution and start working on finding ways to better work together. But really, first switch that.
Did you
Well, like Matthew, we met before one of the IRIIG students who's a successful social enterprise. He's a great example. I think it really depends on the product, whether you change the fundamental initial one or do you invent a new one. In his case, there are straws of several kinds already, but if you look deeply in it, there's a fundamental flaw with each of those systems. So there was a need for a new, absolutely biodegradable one. So that was the outcome. That was the need for new product to come in. So I think each time we are dealing with the problem, we really need to go deep into it and see, are you something that I can fix with little changes that I can do to this problem? Or are you something that needs a total reevaluation of what makes it a problem? And the solution could be, you need a whole new thing. And the thing that existed was made for wrong reasons. So for me, it depends on what we're dealing with, honestly.
have anything to add?
So it comes in my mind, not exactly an answer, but maybe a new question, sorry. For following this one is, I see that maybe a lot of problems today are due to technology, by polluting technology, etc., or energy consuming, attention consuming for social relation. Let's say it's a kind of pollution. And can we solve it with new technology, or maybe this technology can increase a kind of infernal spiral? I don't have the answer, but we are into this spiral today. So it's a question. Can we solve problems created by previous technology with a new one? But I don't have the answer. It's up to you to find the answer.
You want to add anything?
All right. Can I add one more thing?
Absolutely.
Like that? It's just to think about user-centered, like need-centered design and user-centered design. Again, I just add this thing, like include natural elements in this as a user, as a persona. When you're thinking and you're thinking about innovation, there's not just humans as personas. There is also the Earth, and how does she get more? How does she benefit from our activities? Does she get more? Are we making the Earth poorer and poorer, or are we making her richer? And is she getting a good? Is she getting a good use of whatever we're creating for it? So this is designing for not just for humans, but for the entire, for us all.
So In many of the projects that you all work on regularly, they're very, as we mentioned, interdisciplinary, also interinstitutional collaborations between private entities, you know, the nonprofit or public organization sector, and often universities or education institutions. When it comes to these projects you've worked on or opportunities you see, what do you feel is the student's role in these projects? Maybe you can speak to your own experience when you were a student or current projects or opportunities you're working on or see other organizations working on, and how more students can get involved, or what the opportunities from them.
So I feel I can speak about students. I'm not a student, but I live with students every day at the LDLC school, so I have a vision of that. I see students coming into a room, let's say, and they have decision makers, politics with the power, etc. And they have to challenge them and to question them. And often the decision makers will say, it's not your, you are not concerned, don't ask too much question about that. So they should not stop. They are concerned, but why it doesn't concern them? They should be, and they should challenge these decision makers. And also it may seem, and they may be afraid of the complexity of the questions to solve. It's not black and white, it's or binary. It's always complex questions, and they have to not be afraid of this complexity. They have to avoid the reductionist vision, and this is the role I expect they will play. And I'm trying to help them to do that. Thank you for this question. So you are talking about a lack of hard skills. Say, maybe in software essentially, or in trans. I think you need both. But if you are soft skills, but more than that, motivation, envy to engage yourself to solve problems. It will be easy to learn the hard skills, but the soft skills, you can do it together. Just go into Fab Lab. Maybe the first honeypot will be the machines, but you will meet people. You will talk about projects, and you will do it together projects, and you will learn simultaneously the soft skills and the hard skills you need. So just put 1 foot now. Go there. Go somewhere and don't get ready, get started, and you will have both, and you need both to be successful.
And don't let that intimidate you. There are a lot of YouTube tutorials that will teach you how to do anything you want. Now, one thing that I want to say is, for you as students, this is the moment when you can try and break things, you know, because after that, yes, if you find a job or if you start your own business, you are going to be very busy. Then comes the family, and there's also a lot of time invested into that. So if you have an idea, if there's something that you know, it's in your heart, go for it, try it. And even if you don't succeed, which I hope you do succeed, but if you don't, you're going to gather a lot of information that 10 years later is going to come back and it's going to help you for your next endeavor. And it's going to be like, oh, I'm about to do something really stupid. Let's do it the other way. You know, so move fast and break things. Now is the moment.
There's like a saying, fail forward, that we're always talking about. You just fail and keep moving, and you're going to learn a lot in the process if you're a little more fearless and not afraid to fail.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I don't want to plug too much as well, but this started as a university project 7 years ago now. It started as part of my bachelor's project, and I just kept it going on the side. And then 2 years ago, I was like, okay, I just need to get out into the world. So it's like, you might already be working on the thing, which becomes a huge part of your life right now. So, yeah.
absolutely agree with everyone. Addressing to your question, I don't know if we ever went through a phase where that generation felt I don't have the skills to deal with what's happening today. If you ask your parents, my parents, I think all of us have gone through that. I would safely think I'm a different generation than you. But when I was going through the period of discovering what do I really want to contribute, I genuinely thought I didn't have the skills, hard skills, and the soft skills, both actually. And like Jean-Noel said, I walked into a fab lab for the machines first, like I want to learn the hard skill. I want to be the woman who can operate this robot that can move so fast. I want to be this person who can operate CNC, laser cutters, build stuff. Hard skills. I'm going to do it. That's enough. Later, the addiction was the community, the soft skills. How can I use that skill of using that machine to make something that can help people? So YouTube, makerspaces, open source community, Hackaday.io, a lot of platforms will teach you hard skills. And today, the innovation is great. The same place where hard skills are, you find a community. You will find people who will help you code your app, your idea. And maybe you can reach out to Giovanni and he'll fabricate it for you in Pasadena and ship it to you. Yeah. So you might start with search of hard skills, but you will realize quickly it's a absolute mix of both. From my experience, yeah.
Maybe I just react to two things. You're saying go to a fab lab, and you were saying how do you feel about student? I'm saying, well, come and have a project at the Labo One.
Welcome to the Fab Lab. Yeah.
So you're all welcome. If you have an internship or something to do, that would be great.
Yeah, I think I would. Also would say on that note that not to focus so much on the skills. Know the skills you have and don't have, but don't focus so much on what you have or don't have, because you'll find a way to make it work if you just start working on it sooner rather than later, right? Like we were saying, either you'll outsource and make friends and find others that can contribute those skills, or you'll learn them along the way because you find a space that you're curious and you learn more, and then you can introduce those skills as you go, or as you develop. You know, you might need a specific type of hardware, you have to learn how to work with a specific sensor, and then that's the best motivation to learn how that technology works, that sensor or soldering a component, because you really want this prototype to work to get it into the world because you're passionate about the idea. And oftentimes I think that's the best motivation for learning something new. It's easier that way almost than if it's sometimes, not to say anything wrong with classes, I also love just classes. I loved my university experience, but I was much more invested in what I was learning if it was a project I was so excited about, you know, so excited to get to the next stage. Did you say that we have to wrap up, or one more? I think maybe we open it to the audience now. More questions from the audience? Yes. Before we melt, yes. Yes, it's pretty warm. We'll cool off with drinks shortly, right? Yeah. Anything else?
Anyone, if you here have an idea you want to submit or throw a challenge at us, we could totally help you build your submission.
Brainstorm?
Yeah, brainstorm. Because I don't know if it was discussed before, but Jason and I won money through Supplyframe to build one of our ideas, and
Through a Hackaday Prize initiative. Yeah.
this same thing. And it was not just the money; it was the money in the beginning, but then it was them, it was the company behind them, it was a huge community that comes after that, the publicity, all of that. So if you guys have any projects, either with a drink or something, we can totally discuss and brainstorm with you, help you get those submissions, one step closer to the money and the community.
Yeah, and if you have any specific questions about the Hackaday Prize right now, you're welcome to ask those as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be about the other topics we were discussing, but if you're just like a basic question about eligibility or what you need to enter, anything like that, happy to answer those as a group or again, individually in just a moment. All right, any last finishing nuggets of gold from our panelists? Last comments?
Well, I would just like to thank everyone for being here. Hopefully what we discussed was useful and inspiring for you. And yes, I hope not only that you submit ideas, but that you follow your passion, that you get started or continue working on your projects. And I'm sure that will make a difference for France and for the world.
Yes, I don't have a lot of things to add. Just thank you for being here, for the invitation to participate. Thank you, and I see you just after. If you want to discuss, I'm really open to encourage you to projects or discuss the feasibility with you. I really love to do that. I'm open for that. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you so much for the questions. I think those were really interesting additions to the conversation and helped us think a little more about some of the things we're talking about always and learn something ourselves. And I will just say that we're only on challenge 2 of the prize right now, so there's still 3 more challenges, 3 more modules. Each one is open for 5 to 6 weeks, so that is a ton of time to develop things or work on what you already have and kind of hone it in for the submission. So we're currently in Reuse, Recycle, Revamp, which is all about recycling machines or machines that reuse components or reuse materials or, are reusing something that would otherwise end up in the waste stream and doing something new with it, hopefully something good for the world with it. And there's actually the organization that Jason's been very involved in for a long time, Precious Plastic, maybe you've heard of them, have a number of open source recycling machines on their platform, and one opportunity is you can rework those open source things that are already out there and develop your own version for something you're working on, you know? So that's a way you don't have to do 100% of the project from scratch. You can think, okay, this machine is giving me the first 20% of an idea. I want to use it to build my cell phone case or something that I was thinking I need a harder one that's cool colors or whatever it is. And then I submit it to the Hackaday Prize and I maybe get a little money and some new friends out of it, so. Oh, a question. Yay.
Can we even apply if we have a software project or even hardware?
That is a good question. It is specifically focused on hardware electronics, yes. So you do have to have some tangible component, physical component to it. Yes, not just software.
I'll say something to encourage you to apply, because it's also a good, even if you don't go all the way through, which I did maybe in 2017, I applied with this art project, and then it's, I'm kind of happy when I see it years later, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool, that was the idea, and then maybe that's also that makes you document it, and so you can go back at it, even if maybe you get super busy with some other project, and you're like, okay, this was that, and
it's a good deadline to motivate yourself to complete a certain step, right? I've heard, we talk with a lot of our past entrants and community members who have entered and, like you said, maybe didn't get to a certain point. And they said it was great because I at least finished that part of the project that I had been working on for years. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to finish it at least to submit here. And might be good motivation. I'm sure you all have a lot of deadlines as it is at the moment. Maybe you don't need that external motivation, but maybe it'll be a 2-for-1 where you submit it for your final work here and for the site as well. All right. Thank you so much.